What's going on, guys? It's the neighborhood Sancho from Skunkwerks Projects, and today we are crowning the true king of American V8s. That's right, we're comparing the Chevy LS and the Ford Coyote. And yes, I am wearing a Granite's Garage t-shirt right now because Rich is the homie, and at Skunkwerks Projects, we support the homies. Alright, time for a little quick history. With the LS platform dating all the way back to the late 90s, the competition actually expands from not just the Coyote engine, but Chevy LS versus the Ford modular motor family in general. But after a little over a decade of being completely owned by GM, in 2011, Ford decided that they needed to create a V8 engine that didn't suck. However, it still had to share enough of the same basic design features of the previous mod motors that Ford could still use the same assembly line and tooling. So yes, the Coyote engine is still a mod motor, in a sense, but Ford finally got it right with this one. So now we got the history out of the way, let's move on to some of the big differences. So the first category we're going to compare is efficiency. And bottom line is, Coyote engines are just more efficient than LS engines. And this comes from the cylinder heads being designed to flow a massive amount of air from the factory. And that, paired with the higher revving capability of the dual overhead cams, allows the Coyote to make more horsepower per liter than its pushrod LS competitors. Additionally, the use of more modern features such as independent variable cam timing gives the Coyote a steady performance throughout the power band, whereas the single cam overhead valve design of the LS engines means that for the most part it has to sacrifice either high end or low end performance for the other. Next point is ease of power. While both platforms have the potential for big power out of the box, the Coyote edges out the LS when it comes to the ease of reaching that power. And yet again, this comes back to the heads. Stock Coyote heads make the engine extremely boost friendly. The dual overhead cam and variable timing make it an ideal setup for turbocharging, minimizing turbo lag without the reduced low PM drivability that comes from a spicy aftermarket turbo camshaft. You can really capitalize on the strength of those factory forged internals without ever having to open the engine. On the flip side, with an LS, you're going to have to open the engine up a lot sooner because some of the most common mods include improvements to the valve train. One of the first questions an LS guy gets asked is what kind of cam is in it. So right out of the gate, you're looking at getting inside the timing cover, but it doesn't stop there. Other common failure points with the LS are going to be lifters and rocker arm trunnions. So you're going to want to match those up, as well as the new valve springs that you're going to need to get with the aftermarket camshaft that you just stuck in there. And if you're not planning on forced induction, then you're looking at completely swapping to aftermarket heads if you really want to make any power. With all that being said, after a certain point, the LS closes the gap in what it takes to make that next jump in power. Okay, and this brings us on to our third point, versatility. The Coyote has had the clear advantage up to this point, but this is where the LS starts to shine. The LS platform really is just one big Lego setup for car guys. GM created a variety of bore and stroke combinations to give us just a ridiculous number of options when it comes to displacement. The reason I say it's a Lego set is because almost everything on any LS is interchangeable. Emphasis on almost. And with that, you can choose the best features of certain engines and combine them to create your ideal setup for your car. With Coyote engines, you're really limited in your options as far as mixing and matching parts to get the engine you want. The most common practice is the 3-2-1 method, where you take the third gen block, second gen heads, and first gen rotating assembly to give you the best factory built Coyote. But at the end of the day, you're still restricted to that 5-liter displacement and generally the same head flow rate, which isn't bad, but you're also limited to that same bore and stroke ratio as well. Perhaps the most glaring benefit and versatility the LS has over the Coyote is the block design itself. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the Coyote is still a mod motor, and that means it has the same narrow bore spacing as the 5.4 liter and 4.6 liter engines before it had. And that means there really is no option to bore these engines out and really increase the displacement of the Coyote motor to make more power. The LS engine, on the other hand, have a healthy amount of bore spacing and can be bored out quite a bit. The beauty of the LS is that if the 5.3 liters isn't getting the job done, you can take that same block, punch it out to 6 liters with a stroker kit, and be back on top. And with the LS platform as a whole, you can go as far out as 7 liters. All right, rounding out our fourth or fifth, not sure anymore, But our next category is aftermarket support. This is an area where the Coyote is quickly gaining a lot of ground, but as of right now, the LS does hold a definitive advantage. And this can really be attributed to the simple fact that it's been around for more than a decade longer than the Coyote. And with so many variations of the LS, the list of aftermarket options is just massive. However, Coyote is definitely closing the gap. People are really starting to see the potential of these, and guys like Brett LaSala are definitely making it known just how far you can push this thing. All right, next up is going to be availability. And with over 100 million units produced so far, GM put an LS-based engine in just about everything. They've also been doing it for a lot longer, so you can get an LS-based engine just about anywhere. It might just be the most accessible engine option in the US for car enthusiasts ever. Just open up Facebook Marketplace and search engines for sale in your area, and I'll bet you'll see a ton more LS engines for sale than you will see Coyotes. And that's because Ford really only put the Coyote in two models here in the US, the Mustang GT and the F-150. And really, it's not even the most common engine option for the F-150, with most of those being the 2.7 and 3.5 liter EcoBoost. Now, while every other option in the category so far has addressed the potential of the engines, this category is perhaps the most important category because it is arguably the biggest factor in determining the potential of the build itself. And of course, I'm talking about the affordability of buying and building one of these engines. And this is probably the one area that the Coyote just has no chance at competing with the LS. The LS was just produced at such a large volume and for so long that you can get your hands on one just about anywhere for the price of a 12-pack of beer and your left shoestring. As a fan of the Coyote engine myself, there just really isn't a way for this engine to compete when it comes to price. To put things in perspective, the LS engine that we built for our 1968 Oldsmobile 442, this is a fully built stroker engine capable of supporting 1,400 horsepower. And even after the cost of the aftermarket forged crank, rods, pistons, the machine work, the cost of the engine itself, the aftermarket camshaft, the aftermarket valve train, headers, timing component, swap-specific oil pan, and a decent amount of the sensors, we only spent about $6,100. In contrast, a used Coyote engine on eBay will run you about $6,000, and that's before you do a single upgrade. And thanks in no small part to the sheer volume that the LS platform is produced, the aftermarket parts for it are also significantly cheaper than those for the Coyote. You can get a full valve train for the LS from Texas Speed for just the price of the camshafts for the Coyote, which is good because if you're building an LS, you're definitely going to need to upgrade that valve train. Okay, so I said at the beginning of this, you're probably not going to like the answer that we have, and this is where that message really rings true. When it comes to determining what the best American-made V8 engine is, it really comes down to what do you already have. If you have a Mustang or an F-150 already, or you already have a Coyote engine and you're looking to make power, there's not going to be a better V8 than the engine you already have. The Coyote will flow more air with less work and make more power, but it's going to cost you as soon as you have to start getting outside of stock. On the other hand, if you're looking to do an engine swap or you already have an LS, it doesn't get any better. You might have to do more work. In fact, you will have to do more work, but you're going to be able to do it a lot cheaper than you would by going to a Coyote. So at the end of the day, it comes down to what you already have and what you're trying to do. If you don't have any engine at all and you're just starting out from scratch, you're probably going to want to lean towards the LS just because it's the most budget-friendly option and it's proven to make a ton of power and there's a ton of support for it. If you agree, disagree, you think I got it completely wrong, there's stuff I left out, put it down in the comments below. If you're a Coyote guy and you think the LS has no chance in any category, have fun being wrong. If you're an LS guy and you think the Coyote is just a big waste because it's stuck to 5 liters, I challenge you to go look at Fast Forward Racing Engines and see just what they're doing with their Coyotes. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.